Hey guys, tonight we drift into a vineyard where the moonlight doesn't just glow, it giggles. A warm breeze rustles the grapevines, and somewhere in the distance, something brays. You step lightly, the crushed earth sweet with the scent of fermented dreams, and there he is, Dionysus himself, lounging between two amphorae, one eye open, one eyebrow raised. But the real star? A donkey with one ear flopped sideways, wearing a garland of hibiscus, and chewing on something that might be magical or mildly illegal depending on the century. You've heard stories of Dionysus, sure, god of wine, theater, madness, but few whisper of this odd, dusty companion who never quite fits into the Olympian brochures. The donkey brays again, louder now, like a drunk trumpet solo. You flinch. Dionysus doesn't. He chuckles instead. You'll want to remember that sound, he says. It's the beginning of everything weird that follows. You probably won't survive this trip with all your sanity intact. There will be wine rivers, singing trees, and a three-headed dog with rhythm. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I always love seeing the world map light up with your sleepy faces. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're on the road with Dionysus and the donkey now. No turning back. The first time you notice something odd, it's subtle. The grapes in your hand, lush, purple, promising, jitter like they're trying to hold in a joke. Dionysus doesn't seem to care. He's humming a song that doesn't quite rhyme and feeding the donkey figs soaked in honey. The donkey eats them one by one, each chew exaggerated like it's performing for an audience of bored satyrs. Then it lifts its head, looks straight at you, and mutters something in a gravelly voice. You freeze. Did that donkey just talk? Dionysus raises a goblet. He does that sometimes. Only when he's bored. Historians still argue whether the donkey was a mortal animal blessed with divine weirdness, or an actual minor god, demoted for indecent behavior in a temple bathhouse. Either way, it talks. Sometimes. Not often helpfully. You trudge behind them through fields that seem longer than they were 5 minutes ago. A soft mist rises, carrying the scent of wine and laurel. Every few steps, the donkey brays at nothing. Dionysus explains, he's warding off ghosts. Or summoning them. I forget which. You ask where they're going. Dionysus shrugs. Everywhere. Nowhere. Somewhere with good acoustics. This isn't exactly how you imagined a divine road trip. You were expecting thunderbolts and existential wisdom. Instead, you get hoofprints in the mud and a donkey that refuses to cross bridges unless someone sings to it. The sun's setting now. You camp in a clearing littered with crushed grape skins and mysterious giggles. Dionysus curls up in his cloak. The donkey lies beside him, snoring like a broken flute. You try to sleep, but the stars blink like they're watching a sitcom you're not invited to. Then, just before you doze off, the donkey murmurs again. This time it says, "Don't trust the wine if it walks toward you." You stare. Welcome to the beginning of everything odd. By morning, the donkey is gone. You wake to birds that sound like they've had too much coffee, and Dionysus already halfway through a bottle of something suspiciously glowing. He's humming again, eyes distant, fingers idly braiding grapevines into a crown that keeps unraveling itself. But the donkey, no sign. Only a few fresh hoofprints stamped deep into the dewy earth, and one alarming pile of amphora shards that looks like it exploded from the inside. Relax, Dionysus says, not looking up. He does this, wanders off, gets into arguments with statues, comes back smelling like trouble. You follow the trail, because of course you do, through hills where the vines seem to lean toward you, whispering and rustling voices. The donkey's prints wind up a slope, past a lazy stream that gurgles like it's hiccuping. You crest the hill, and there it is. The donkey stands perfectly still in the center of a grove, surrounded by toads. Big ones. Dozens. All facing it. And the donkey is lecturing them. Something about fermentation. You creep closer. Are those toads listening? One toad nods, solemn. The donkey turns to you, ears twitching. About time, it grumbles. They were getting restless. I told them about sulfites and now they think I'm a god. You blink. Dionysus arrives moments later, looking entirely unsurprised. He's like that. Talks to anything with a pulse. once converted a scarecrow into a wine critic. Historians still debate the donkey's origin. Some say he was born from the spilled tears of a satyr who'd lost a drinking contest. Others claim he wandered in from India, part of Dionysus's eastern campaigns, and simply never left. Fringe scholars point out the glowing tail and argue he's technically a chimera, albeit one with low ambition. Either way, the donkey returns to your side like nothing happened, and you press onward. That's when the tremors begin. At first, it feels like distant thunder, low, rhythmic. Then the ground shudders beneath your sandals. Vines sway unnaturally. The donkey suddenly bolts forward, dragging you with him, braying with alarm. You burst through a thicket into a clearing and find the source. A colossal tortoise, covered in moss and vines, is lumbering through the vineyard, its shell etched with symbols glowing faintly in the daylight. Dionysus gasps with childlike delight. Ah, the old cellar guardian. Haven't seen him since the wine flood of 87. You step back as the tortoise turns its massive head your way. Its eyes glow amber. It nods. Then it speaks. In a voice like corks popping in slow motion, it says, "Return what you borrowed, Bacchus." Dionysus stiffens. The donkey mutters, "Told you it'd catch up eventually." Apparently, long ago, Dionysus borrowed a magical amphora said to produce endless wine, and then forgot where he left it. Possibly in a fountain. Possibly in a lover's garden. Possibly as a prank offering to Apollo. Who remembers? You offer to help search. The tortoise seems amused, which is a very slow emotion on a very slow face. Very well, it rumbles. But the price of delay increases. It turns, lumbers off toward the hills. "That's new," you say. Dionysus shrugs. Tuesday. You set up camp again, donkey curled at your feet. The stars are brighter now, too close, like they've pressed their noses to the glass of the sky to watch. Dionysus is silent, sipping from a clay cup that never empties. You finally ask him, why the donkey? Why not a lion or a peacock or something godlier? He chuckles, gazing into the dark. Because only the donkey walks with me when I'm lost. You look at the animal, its muddy hooves, frayed mane, eyes half-lidded but ancient. And suddenly, you're not so sure who's guiding him. You don't expect much from an oracle whose temple smells like stale figs and sounds like a late-night tavern. But here you are, wading through clusters of giggling acolytes and tripping over amphorae as you follow Dionysus and the donkey toward a grand hall that leans slightly to the left, as if it's had a little too much prophecy. Inside, the oracle, an old woman with eyes like overripe olives and a hairstyle that seems to predict wind patterns, burps when she sees you. Ah, the one with the walking corkscrew. You glance at the donkey. It flicks an ear. She beckons you closer. The donkey goes first, naturally, planting itself at her feet and braying a sonorous note that echoes off the marble columns. She listens, nods, and reaches for a goblet the size of a toddler. You want answers? She slurs. You'll need wine. And dancing. And maybe a storm. Dionysus grins. We're good at all three. What follows is not a traditional prophecy. It's more like a limerick shouted through a fog of smoke and incense while the donkey stamps its hooves in rhythm. Still, you manage to decipher the key line. When vines run dry and stars retreat, the bray will guide immortal feet. You blink. That's cryptic. The oracle nods solemnly, then falls asleep mid-snore. Dionysus looks oddly moved. She's never said anything that clear before. Historians still argue whether this prophecy referred to a future war of gods, the fall of a city, or simply an unpaid wine tab that spiraled out of control. Some fringe theorists believe the oracle was channeling the donkey itself, a divine ventriloquist act, as it were. Outside, the air feels thicker. The sky has shifted, stars pulsing with unease. You sense something tightening around your path, like fate itself has started to lean in closer. That night, the donkey insists on sleeping curled around your feet, occasionally muttering in ancient Phrygian and twitching like it's dreaming of flying. You're halfway through a dream about grapevines dancing when music wakes you. Not regular music, this sounds like spoons hitting bronze helmets, like someone singing in reverse while skipping. You stumble out of your tent. Dionysus is already up, twirling through the clearing, leading what appears to be a spontaneous parade of mismatched beings, satyrs, dryads, talking raccoons, and two very confused merchants from Corinth. It's the festival of misfits, he shouts over the din. It just kind of happens. The donkey is leading the parade, of course, wearing a cape made of fermented fig leaves and a crown of olives. At one point, it pauses, picks up a lyre with its teeth, and strums a surprisingly accurate rendition of a popular Macedonian drinking song. The crowd loses its mind. Then come the contests. You watch a satyr try to outdance a nymph who's technically a tree. A mortal attempts to win the affection of a cloud. Someone sells invisible pastries. But the main event? A spontaneous poetry contest. The donkey steps forward. You brace for awkwardness. Instead, it begins to bray in perfect iambic pentameter. O noble vine, thou twist of fate and fruit. In fermented delight, we find our truth. Silence. Then roaring applause. It wins, obviously. Dionysus beams like a proud uncle. You try to clap politely, but you're still not over the iambic braying. That night, as the misfits curl around the campfire, someone starts whispering that the donkey is an avatar. That it speaks in riddles and rhyme only when the world tilts too far off balance. That once, long ago, it defeated a minor war god in a drinking contest. You try to ask Dionysus, but he just smiles and pours you more wine. The stars pulse again. Something is definitely brewing. By the time you wake up, someone's replaced your sandals with wine bottles. Probably the satyr with a sock collection and boundary issues. The donkey is missing again, but only for dramatic effect. It appears moments later, dragging what looks like a small table behind it. On the table? A goblet filled with wine that seems to shimmer on its own. Watch this, Dionysus whispers, grinning like a child about to release a squirrel into a courtroom. The goblet rises. By itself, floats, then tips gently, pouring a perfect stream of wine into an empty amphora, which, conveniently, hops into place just in time. The amphora burps. Everyone claps. You blink. That's not normal. The donkey winks. You spend the day following the wine. It bottlenecks itself into jars, sloshes uphill, spells out rude poems on stone paths. People start arriving from nearby villages, drawn by the rumors. The wine pours itself. It's alive. Some worship. Some panic. One man tries to marry a bottle. Historians agree that this strange vineyard miracle happened, though they still argue whether the cause was divine intervention or an elaborate prank involving magnets and a very bored nymph. Fringe accounts suggest the donkey had visited this land centuries ago and blessed it with a wine soul, whatever that means. There's also a weirdly consistent rumor that wherever the donkey walks, fermentation accelerates, which explains the spontaneous barrel explosions. The villagers bring offerings, baskets of bread, clay figurines. One guy hands the donkey a scroll of his unpublished epic. The donkey eats it. You're in the middle of directing a group of confused tourists toward the haunted Chardonnay grove when a new voice cuts through the laughter. You've got some nerve throwing a party without me. You turn. A figure stands at the edge of the vineyard. Tall, cloaked in theatrical maroon, and wearing the biggest, floppiest ceremonial hat you've ever seen. Dionysus groans. Oh no! Not him. The man steps forward with flair. Iacchus, half-brother, patron of overly serious festivals. Remember me? You do, vaguely. He's like Dionysus if you drained the fun and replaced it with pageantry. He marches up to the donkey and sneers. This is the famed beast? The talking mule of myth? I expected a centaur, at least. The donkey brays. Loudly. Mockingly. Possibly in Latin. Iacchus flinches. Apparently, there's a long-standing divine beef between the brothers. Something about who invented communal drunkenness. Who gets credit for the invention of masks. Who left the olive tapenade out during a sacred rite. You know, normal immortal squabbles. Now, Iacchus accuses Dionysus of stealing his thunder. And his festival formula. And possibly his favorite flute. Dionysus shrugs. People like me more. I don't make them chant in hexameter. The donkey chooses this moment to bite Iacchus's robes. Just a little. Iacchus yelps. That animal is cursed. Possibly, Dionysus agrees. But charming. What follows is a divine tantrum. Iacchus summons winds. The vines dance. Amphorae explode again. One hits a tourist. The donkey farts once, loudly, and the wind stops. You stare. The villagers stare. Even the raccoon priest stares. And slowly, applause starts. Iacchus storms off. Dionysus raises his goblet. To unwanted relatives in magical gas. That night, as things quiet, the donkey rests its head in your lap. And for the first time, you feel it, not just the absurdity, but the undercurrent of something bigger. The donkey isn't just a companion. It's a mirror, a guide, a joke wrapped in cosmic wisdom, and you have a feeling you're going to need both soon. You wake up face down in a pile of grapes that may or may not be trying to crawl away. The donkey is already upright, tail swishing with intent, ears locked forward like it hears something you don't. Dionysus is humming again. That's never a good sign. Today, he says, brushing twigs out of his hair, we're going somewhere a bit darker. You groan. Is this another metaphor? He grins. Not this time. He gestures to a vine-covered archway at the edge of the clearing. You swear it wasn't there yesterday. It's pulsing slightly, like it's breathing. The donkey walks through first without hesitation. Because of course it does. You follow. The air changes immediately, cooler, thicker, with the scent of damp stone and secrets. You're underground, in a series of tunnels lit by bioluminescent moss and the faint glow of, is that wine? Yes. A thin stream of red liquid trickles along the rock floor, humming gently to itself. You dip a finger in. Definitely Merlot. Slightly oaky. Welcome to the Forgotten Cellars, Dionysus announces. Storage vault for divine vintages, terrible ideas, and one very angry ex. Historians acknowledge the existence of underground Dionysian cult chambers, especially in regions like Thrace and Etruria. What's less documented are the animated barrels and bottles that slosh toward you as you walk. You pass a room filled with corks that whisper names. Another with amphorae floating gently in midair, humming lullabies. Then you arrive at a large obsidian door covered in grapevine engravings. Dionysus hesitates. She's behind here, he says. She, you ask. He nods. The one who made the wine walk. Before you can ask what that means, the door creaks open. Inside, reclining on a throne made entirely of vine and bone, is a woman with eyes like fermented starlight. She smirks at Dionysus. Then at you. Then, finally, at the donkey. Well, she purrs. You finally brought him back. The donkey brays, but it's softer now, almost guilty. Turns out, the donkey used to belong to her. Back when she was a goddess of intoxication and rebellion, before she stepped down, grew disillusioned with divine politics, and locked herself underground with her personal vintage collection. She called the donkey Stomper. It's awkward. The donkey kicks at the floor. She sighs, looking suddenly tired. I missed him, you know. He used to keep the barrels in line. Dionysus offers her a bottle of moon-aged Shiraz. She raises an eyebrow, then accepts. Historians don't record her name. Some believe she's an aspect of Dionysus himself. Others say she predates him entirely, a chthonic echo of ecstatic rites that even Olympus forgot. Whatever the case, she doesn't ask for the donkey back. Just don't let him near the sparkling rose vats, she mutters. You remember what happened last time. The donkey farts in reply. You leave quietly, the memory of her lingering like a perfume made of thunder and blackberry. Outside the tunnel, the daylight feels thinner. The vines aren't giggling anymore. And the donkey? It walks a little slower now. Like it's remembering, too. You're barely out of the Forgotten Cellars when the donkey starts acting weird. Weirder than usual, anyway. It keeps stopping mid-step, staring at empty space, ears swiveling like satellite dishes trying to catch an invisible signal. It brays, then suddenly bolts off the path. Dionysus doesn't hesitate, he sprints after it barefoot, robe flapping behind him like a disheveled curtain. You follow, of course, because what else are you going to do? Stay behind and let magical wine vines eat your sandals again? The donkey leads you to a hillside dotted with strange circular stones, each one carved with symbols, all pulsing faintly. There, seated on the largest stone, is a man with a grin too wide and a hat too large. No, not a man. A god. You're late, he says with a theatrical sigh, standing to his full 7-foot height and adjusting the brim of his ridiculous sun hat. Dionysus groans. Iacchus, again? I thought we settled this. Apparently not. Iacchus snaps his fingers, and suddenly you're surrounded by minor deities, gods of composting, seasonal allergies, and one very bitter god of mediocre poetry. Each of them looking mildly annoyed. I've filed an official complaint, Iacchus announces, unfurling a scroll that goes on for about 6 meters. You've infringed on divine performance rights, disrupted sacred festival scheduling, and worst of all, allowed this creature, he points at the donkey, to assume symbolic dominance. The donkey sneezes in response. Dionysus crosses his arms. Jealousy doesn't look good on you, brother. I am not jealous, Iacchus snaps, his hat vibrating with rage. I merely demand equal mythological real estate. Historians still debate the legitimacy of Iacchus's claim to Dionysian identity. Some say he was a separate entity absorbed into the Dionysian cult. Others suggest he was a manifestation of Dionysus's youthful side. Theories abound, especially among scholars who enjoy arguing at wine tastings. A compromise is proposed, a divine talent showcase. 1 act each. Winner gets exclusive festival rights for the next 1,000 years. Dionysus sighs. Fine. But I go last. Iacchus begins with a choral ode performed by butterflies made of scroll parchment. It's technically impressive but emotionally flat. Then Dionysus steps forward. Ready, buddy? He asks the donkey. The donkey nods once, then begins to dance. And by dance, we mean full-on interpretive movement, hoof slides, tail sways, rhythmic braying in sync with an invisible beat. The surrounding vines start pulsing. The circular stones vibrate. Even Iacchus's ridiculous hat tips forward, as if bowing in disbelief. By the end, several of the minor deities are crying softly. One of them tries to write a haiku and gives up halfway through. Iacchus throws his scroll in the air. This is rigged! Dionysus winks. It's called charisma. Look it up! The donkey bows. Even Iacchus has to admit defeat, grudgingly, and leaves in a swirl of rope and ego, muttering about filing an appeal with Mount Olympus HR. You watch him disappear into the haze, and something shifts. The sky clears. The vines breathe easier. Dionysus claps your back. That went well. You look at the donkey, who seems utterly unimpressed, nibbling on a piece of parchment someone left behind. And you realize something chilling. You started expecting the absurd. Which means things are about to get worse. The path forward curves downward, unnaturally so, as if the earth itself is tugging you deeper. Dionysus says it'll be a shortcut, and the donkey seems oddly enthusiastic, ears perked, hooves tapping like it knows a secret you don't. You follow. The tunnel entrance appears without warning, a jagged mouth carved into a cliffside, ringed with ivy and symbols too old to name. The donkey trots in first. You hesitate. This isn't the underworld, right? Dionysus chuckles. It's part of it, not the tourist section. You step inside. The air thickens instantly, like walking into syrup. Sounds muffle. Shadows shift faster than your footsteps. The donkey's glow, yes, it's glowing again, casts long, weird shadows that occasionally don't match its movement. You descend. The walls breathe. Somewhere behind you, a chorus of whispers argues in a dialect no mortal throat could form. Dionysus seems relaxed, like he's done this 1,000 times, whistling a tune that sounds like it could summon storms. After what feels like hours, but might be minutes, you reach a river. Not just any river. This one runs with wine. Dark, slow, slightly bubbling. You stare. The Vintes, Dionysus says reverently. River of forgotten toasts. Every time someone raises a glass and no one listens, the wine ends up here. The donkey dips its nose in. Immediately hiccups. A boat approaches. It rows itself, oars moving with eerie rhythm. Dionysus hops in, pats the seat beside him. You board. The donkey flops beside you, tail hanging over the edge like a lazy rudder. As the boat glides forward, the scenery shifts, shattered banquet tables, lost goblets, broken corkscrews float by. You pass statues of forgotten gods, their eyes closed, their lips stained purple. Then come the songs, drifting over the water in soft, mournful tones. Ancient drinking songs. Forgotten lullabies. Even a few football chants from lost stadiums. Dionysus sighs. The dead don't always want silence. Sometimes they want a last round. Historians note that mystery cults often included symbolic underworld journeys, blending death, ecstasy, and renewal. But none mention donkeys hiccuping in boats. Your ride ends at a dock made of bone-white reeds. Stepping out, you find yourself at a sprawling hall of shadows. No roof, no walls, just columns and stars above. Spirits drift through the space, sipping from goblets that refill themselves. They nod politely as you pass. Then a growl splits the air. Cerberus. Enormous. 3 heads. Each with a different snarl. It steps forward. Dionysus holds out his hand. Easy, boy. Remember me? Cerberus snarls. Then blinks. And sniffs. The donkey steps forward. Raises one hoof. Taps out a rhythm on the stone floor. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A beat. Cerberus tilts his heads. Then, somehow, starts to dance. Slow, heavy paw steps. Tail wagging. Heads bobbing. It's horrifying. And weirdly graceful. The spirits cheer. Someone tosses spectral roses. The donkey finishes with a brace spin and a triumphant stomp. Cerberus licks its nose, then lumbers off, humming to itself. Told you, Dionysus grins. He's got moves. You collapse onto a bench that materializes behind you. I need a drink. A spirit floats over. Offers you a goblet. The liquid inside glows faintly. You sip. It tastes like every memory you forgot you loved. And just like that, the underworld doesn't feel so heavy. You don't expect to be chased by a pack of grapes, but that's exactly what happens 2 hours later. You're barely past the Gate of Echoes, where spirits mumble their last regrets into the soil, when a low rumble starts behind you. At first, you think it's thunder. Then it squeaks. Then you see them, grapes. Thousands of them. Rolling. Hopping. Barreling down the slope like a fruit stampede with malicious intent. Dionysus barely glances back. Ah. The vintage revolt. We should hurry. What did you do? You shout, sprinting alongside the donkey. I may have fermented a sacred vine too soon. Again. The donkey doesn't run, it dances, zigzagging between rocks, tail swaying like it's performing for an invisible audience. You, on the other hand, trip over a rogue raisin. When you finally stumble into a moss-covered ruin that smells like old nectar and panic, Dionysus slams a vine door shut behind you. The grapes thud outside. One angry grape rolls under the door and pops. You're safe. For now. You take a deep breath, noticing a series of stone statues in the clearing ahead, each one depicting a donkey in a different pose. Weird, you mutter. Dionysus nods solemnly. Welcome to the Grove of Bray. According to French mythology, this grove was once a temple dedicated entirely to donkey worship. Not donkeys in general, one specific donkey. The statues bear his likeness. The poses range from heroic to ridiculous, hoisting amphory, breakdancing, even one where he's clearly flipping off a satyr. You wonder how much of it is exaggerated. The donkey trots to the center and snorts. A stone pedestal rises from the ground. Upon it, a scroll sealed with wax and olive oil. You open it carefully. The writing shifts as you read, slippery, elusive. But one line stands firm. Let he who rides the brain star remember the city that speaks in riddles. You share it with Dionysus. He sighs. That city again. You've been there? Once. I left in a hurry. Too many questions. Not enough wine. The donkey begins walking again, ears low. You follow. The landscape shifts. Trees bend in odd directions. Streams gurgle in Morse code. And every few minutes you hear a distant bray echoing like a foghorn. The sky dims as you approach a long road lined with shattered amphory. At its end, you see faint lights, flickering, like lanterns carried by uncertain hands. Dionysus slows. We're near. Near what? A place where logic limps and language bites. Cool, you mutter. Love that. The donkey stops at the gate. It reads, Welcome to Paralia. Speak wisely or not at all. Inside, every building is shaped like a question mark. The streets curve like commas. You ask a passerby for directions. They respond with a riddle about shadows drinking light. You try again. Another riddle, this one about clocks that lie. Everything is riddle. Everything. Even the fruit sellers respond with poetic traps. Dionysus warns you not to answer anything unless you're sure. Wrong answers have consequences. What kind of? Before you can finish, a man nearby answers a riddle wrong. Instantly, his clothes turn into scrolls and blow away. He screams, runs off, tripping over syllables. That kind, Dionysus mutters. The donkey, however, thrives. It navigates the riddles easily, braying once for yes, twice for no, a snort for irrelevant question. The locals revere it. Whisper its name. One elderly woman kneels and offers it a riddle fruit, a pomegranate that only opens if you laugh at it. The donkey eats it whole. That night, you rest in a guest house that sings lullabies in iambic pentameter. The bed keeps changing shape to match your dreams. The donkey curls up beside it, eyes half closed, muttering in riddles. You dream of clocks that bleed, stars that rhyme, and one braying echo that guides you towards something strange and sacred. You wake knowing one thing clearly: the donkey knows where you're going. And it's not going to be somewhere safe. You leave Paralia just before dawn, though dawn is a loose term here. It's more like the sky flips a coin and decides on dim yellow for the next few hours. The streets whisper riddles at your back as you pass, like they're trying one last time to trap you in metaphor. The donkey brays once. The whispers hush. Even the buildings seem to flinch. You're not sure if it's fear or respect, but either way, you're grateful. The road out curls like a question mark turned sideways, and before long, you reach the edge of a cliff. Below lies an island, not surrounded by sea, but by time. You can see it clearly, a long, crescent-shaped all bathed in orange light. The sun there never moves. Trees don't sway. People don't blink. It's an eternal moment stretched thin. Dionysus sighs. The island where time got stuck. I hate this place. Then why are we going? Because the donkey says so. The donkey snorts and trots ahead, already halfway down a staircase carved into the cliffside. You follow, the steps creaking like old thoughts. As you reach the bottom, a strange sensation hits you, the feeling of pause. Not stillness, pause. Like everything is holding its breath. The moment your foot touches the sand, the world forgets how to move. Your heartbeat slows. The breeze stutters. Even your thoughts drag like molasses on cold stone. You walk through a village frozen mid-laughter. A woman is mid-sneeze. A dog is mid-bark. A child is mid-hop, one toe just hovering. Dionysus pushes past them with familiar grimness. You didn't say we were going into a pocket reality, you mumble. Technically, it's a memory, he replies. A very persistent one. Historians mention scattered myths of islands where time behaves badly, usually attributed to divine punishment or protective curses. Some say such places are remnants of dreams the gods abandoned. Others claim they're leftovers from when Kronos misfiled the celestial calendar. As you pass through the village square, something feels off. Not just the stillness, but the familiarity. The donkey walks slowly now, like it remembers every face. Then you see him. Another Dionysus. You blink. But he's there, standing perfectly still at the center of a stone circle, goblet frozen mid-toast, eyes wide in manic joy. It's Dionysus, younger, wilder, less grounded, more chaos. Ah, you're Dionysus, mutters. That version. The donkey walks up to the frozen god and nudges his leg. Nothing. Dionysus explains, this was me at the height of madness. When I thought parties were answers. When I believed ecstasy solved everything. I came here to reflect. Did it work? He scoffs. It trapped me. Literally. I only got out because the donkey broke the riddle of the sunset. The donkey brays softly and steps into the stone circle. For a second, nothing happens. Then the ground pulses, once, twice, and the frozen Dionysus begins to melt. Not like wax, more like he's being unwound, threads of light unraveling into the air. Suddenly you feel it, too, a loosening. Your thoughts pick up speed. The trees rustle again. The dog finishes its bark. Time returns. The villagers blink, move, cheer. They rush toward the donkey, calling it names you don't recognize. Echohoof. Brayer of now. Breaker of when. Your Dionysus watches quietly. He doesn't join the celebration. He looks at you. I left that part of me here on purpose. But maybe it's time to integrate. The villagers bring offerings. Wine, song, strange clocks that only tick backward. You camp there that night, beside the fire pit that never burns out. The donkey dreams again. This time, it murmurs a name, Erisha. Dionysus stiffens. That name hasn't been spoken in 1,000 years. Who is she? The beginning of the end, he whispers. And the reason the donkey was born. You sit in silence as the sun hovers, unmoving above the horizon. And you realize, you stepped into a story deeper than myth. The sun still hasn't moved. It hovers above the island's horizon like a nosy god who forgot how time works. You pack up camp in a haze of soft oranges and golds, unsure if it's morning, afternoon, or last Thursday. Dionysus ties his hair back with a vine. The donkey yawns, loudly, and paws at the dirt until it reveals a buried amphora with a tiny, angry face etched into it. The face yells something in Etruscan and then goes quiet. Ignore that one, Dionysus mutters. It's dramatic. You leave the island by a bridge that wasn't there before. It unfurls from the air itself, stone by stone, with each hoof step the donkey takes. Behind you, the villagers wave, then pause mid-motion as the island begins to slow again, time folding back into amber stillness. The bridge ends in a thicket of reeds taller than your head. You push through them, bracing for anything, another party, a beast, maybe more angry produce. Instead, you step out into silence. Not quiet, silence. A heavy, woolen stillness that wraps around your skin and presses into your ears. Dionysus looks grim. She's close. The donkey stiffens, sniffs the air, and begins walking toward a rocky outcrop shaped like a question mark that fell asleep. You follow, stepping over twisted roots and piles of wilted garlands. Everything here smells of old offerings and forgotten promises. Then, in a clearing surrounded by twisted olive trees, you see her. Erisia. She doesn't look like a goddess. More like a storyteller at the end of the world, tattered cloak, eyes too bright, skin marked with ancient ink. Her voice, when she speaks, feels like it's been echoing for centuries. Bacchus, she says. And your beast. Dionysus, he corrects her. She smiles. Names are costumes. You've worn many. She turns to the donkey, who lowers its head in something like a bow. Then she looks at you. A mortal still clinging to narrative. Brave. You try to speak, but your voice curls back into your throat like a shy cat. Historians have no record of Erisia. At best, she's a footnote in a suppressed scroll, a whisper of a goddess who governed uncertainty, not chaos, not fate, but the unease between decisions. The itch before truth. The tremor before choice. You're here for answers, she says, stepping forward. But you've brought the wrong questions. The donkey snorts. She nods. Of course he knows. He always did. She circles you all slowly. The air thickens with every step. You want to know why the wine walks. Why the riddles speak. Why time hiccups when he brays. Yes, you whisper. She stops. Looks into the donkey's eyes. Then into yours. Because the gods aren't what they were. Olympus rusts. The old myths were thin. But he, the donkey, was never about worship. He was about remembrance. Dionysus shifts uncomfortably. You said that before the fall. I said many things, she replies. But now I'll say this, he is the last anchor. Anchor to what? To meaning. To madness. To the stories we forgot were important. The donkey walks to her. She places a hand on its head, then steps back, and a pulse of sound bursts through the clearing, not noise, but story. You feel it hit your bones, and something clicks. A memory, not yours, a festival under 3 moons, a braying song, a promise made in laughter and wine. You gasp. Dionysus winces. The donkey simply blinks. Erisia steps into the olive grove and vanishes. Dionysus is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "We're not done. But we're not lost anymore." You nod, still trembling. The donkey brays once. Softly. Like a punctuation mark. And the world shifts again. You spend the next morning trying to decide whether what just happened, or if you collectively shared a hallucination flavored with fermented olives and unresolved divine tension. The donkey offers no clarification, just trots ahead like it didn't just stare down a forgotten goddess and absorb a cosmic truth. Dionysus is silent, which is rare. When he finally speaks, it's without drama. She's right, you know. The donkey remembers what even I forget. You don't answer. Your mind is still replaying the word anchor and how it echoed inside your ribs like a bell. The road turns again. This time into fog. Dense, swirling, sweet-smelling fog that clings to your eyelashes and hums softly. You reach a hill. The fog thins at the top. And you see it, a statue of the donkey, twice life-size, cast in bronze, sitting like a wise old scholar. At its feet, a circle of people sit cross-legged, chanting. They were robes stitched with tiny bells. Some have painted their faces to look like donkeys, ears and all. You blink. Is that? Dionysus groans. Not again. The cult sees you. A collective gasp. Then joyous shouting. He has returned. Brayroth is with us. Brayroth? They rush forward. One tries to kiss the donkey's hoof. Another offers a scroll that smells faintly of cinnamon and desperation. Apparently, in the time since your last donkey sighting, someone had a vision. A talking donkey in the shape of a savior. They built this temple overnight, they say. The grapes grew in spirals. The bells rang themselves. They speak of the donkey not as a symbol, but as the origin of balance, between chaos and order, silence and song, myth and memory. The donkey looks mildly annoyed. One acolyte bows and begins reciting what he calls the sacred bray, a poetic epic in 12 parts. You listen to 5 lines before Dionysus interrupts. Okay, that's enough. He's flattered. We're leaving. The cult gasps in unified heartbreak. One faints. 2 others offer him their sandals as tribute. Dionysus pulls you aside. We can't stay. This happens every few centuries. He shows up. Miracles happen. People freak out and build temples. It never ends well. But they adore him. That's the problem. He's not meant to be worshipped. He's meant to remind. You finally pry the donkey away with the promise of fig cakes and 0 sermons. As you leave, the cult begins writing new verses about your departure. One starts sketching your face into the side of a tree. Great, you mutter. Now I'm in scripture. You walk until the temple's bells fade behind you. The donkey brays softly, like an apology. That night, you camp under an arch of woven grapevines. The stars above flicker like candles caught between breaths. Dionysus sits with his back to a tree, eyes distant. You know, he says, there was a time when I thought I was the only god that still mattered. Parties. Chaos. Wine. Who doesn't want that? You stay quiet. But watching them today, I remembered. Stories matter more than worship. Especially the odd ones. The ones people laugh off. That donkey saved me more times than I can count, not because he's powerful. Because he shows up when no one else will. The donkey snores. You close your eyes to the sound of vines creaking and a distant, rhythmic bray echoing through the trees. And you know, something is building. Something old. And unfinished. By morning, your name has been carved into 4 trees, 2 amphorae, and 1 acolyte's bicep. The cult of Brayroth is not just passionate, they're prolific. You leave quickly. Dionysus insists on disguises, a tattered fisherman's cloak for you, a laurel wreath of dead leaves for himself, and for the donkey, absolutely nothing. It refuses to wear hats. As you return to the main road, you notice something has changed. The air tastes heavier. The wind stutters like a skipped heartbeat. Even the light bends wrong, like reality is tired of holding itself upright. We're being watched, Dionysus mutters. You soon see why. Along the ridge stands a series of stone faces, giant, grim, weathered by time but somehow recent. One of them has your eyes. Another is clearly Dionysus, mid-laugh. And the third? The donkey, mid-bray, carved in exquisite detail, tongue out, tail up. They're rewriting the narrative, Dionysus says, voice low. The cult's belief is strong enough to change history, at least in these pockets. You ask if that's dangerous. He doesn't answer. Instead, he points ahead. Smoke curls into the sky from a nearby slope. You climb toward it, expecting a shrine, maybe a ritual. You find a printing press. A massive, divine-looking one, manned by animated quills and parchment creatures. Pages fly through the air like birds, settling into massive bound volumes stamped with gold lettering, the Book of Bray. The donkey looks unimpressed. You pick one up. It reads like a fever dream of pseudo-theology and questionable poetry. It has chapters like The Miracle of the Spilled Goblet and Brayroth Turns Grape to Thought. Your name appears in 5 separate prophecies, one of which implies you'll marry a cloud. Okay, this is out of hand, you mutter. Dionysus sighs. This is what happens when the idea grows bigger than the truth. They've mythologized him into something he never was. You turn to the donkey. How do you feel about all this? It brays. Loudly. Every page on the press bursts into flames. The machines shudder and collapse. A printing quill squeals and darts into the woods. The donkey looks at you, deadpan. I guess that's how he feels, you say. From the ashes of the press, something emerges, a single scroll, unburned. Dionysus picks it up and reads it aloud. He who seeks the heart of the vine must walk where gods have no name. He lowers it slowly. We need to go north. You ask why. Because the cult isn't the problem, he says. They're the symptom. Someone, or something, is pushing this narrative for a reason. That night, as you sleep beneath a moon that flickers like an old lamp, the donkey paces the edge of camp, restless, anxious, watching shadows that move without sound. And in your dream, the vines whisper your name backwards. When you wake, the donkey is staring at you, and something in its eyes says, "Hurry." You travel north through terrain that seems increasingly confused about what century it belongs to. Some mornings, the trees were togas. By afternoon, the rivers hum jazz. You pass a field of amphorae buried neck-deep in the earth like ceramic tulips. Each one whispers your name as you pass, but only in haiku. You try not to engage. Dionysus becomes more serious with every step, the grin fading from his face like wine from a cracked cup. "Something's pulling us forward," he mutters. Like a hook sunk behind our ribs. The donkey is eerily quiet. No brays. No dancing. Just steady trotting, eyes locked on the horizon. Eventually, the landscape sharpens, rockier, colder. Mountains loom, jagged like broken teeth. But what gets you isn't the terrain. It's the sound. A low, off-key melody. Not from instruments. From the mountains themselves. They're singing. Badly. You flinch. Dionysus groans. "We're here." According to obscure Hellenic texts banned for general nonsense, this region was once home to the Singing Peaks, a place where echoes became self-aware and developed a taste for show tunes. The locals fled. The gods stayed away. Except now, someone, or something, has stirred them again. As you climb, the discordant notes turn into words. Almost. Breaway, re, tuyurn. The donkey stops dead. Ears back. Then it starts walking faster, hooves clacking against stone like a heartbeat. At the summit, you find a circle of obelisks made of crystalline wine residue, each humming softly in a different pitch. In the center, a figure. Not a god. Not a mortal. A thing. It looks like someone tried to sculpt Dionysus from memory using melted candles and bad intentions. Robes dripping. Face smeared. Eyes too wide and blinking out of sync. "Ah," it says. The brayer returns. Dionysus stiffens. "Ethon." You whisper, "Who?" He answers without looking at you. "My echo. Born the day I tried to bottle joy itself." Ethon grins. "You left me behind." But he gestures to the vibrating obelisks, they listened. Apparently, when Dionysus created a festival so intense it cracked reality, a fragment of his essence broke off and embedded itself in the mountains. Over centuries, the echoes grew minds. The minds grew need. And eventually, this thing formed. Now it wants form. "Join me," Ethon pleads. "Let us write the next myth together." The donkey's already half divine. "Imagine what we could do." Dionysus shakes his head. "You're not real." Ethon snarls. "Neither is reverence." "But here we are." The donkey steps forward. Then brays. Once. The sound is pure. Sharp. Real. It slices through the mountain songs like a knife through fog. The obelisks shatter. Ethon howls, face distorting, robes evaporating like spilled wine in the sun. Silence. Then wind. Then you realize you're still standing. Dionysus exhales. He chose truth. Not myth. The donkey, without flair, sits. You set up camp nearby. No fire tonight. Just the stars and the smell of crushed quartz. Dionysus finally speaks. "We're getting close." To what? To the moment this all breaks, or becomes legend. The donkey snores. You wonder if gods dream. You wonder if you will. The descent from the Singing Peaks is eerily quiet. No birds, no wind, not even a sarcastic donkey bray to break the stillness. The shattered obelisks lie behind you like the remains of a language no one should have spoken. Dionysus walks ahead, eyes distant, steps heavy like each one carries a decade. The donkey follows, uncharacteristically somber, ears back, tail limp. You don't say anything. You don't need to. The mountain gave you silence, and it's clinging to your bones. By dusk, the landscape shifts again. Green returns, then gold, then bursts of violet as you reach a valley where grapevines grow in precise spirals. It's too orderly to be natural. Dionysus grimaces. "We're here." The vineyard of accord. You expected something more festive, less surgical. Rows and rows of vines grow in eerie symmetry. No weeds. No pests. Each leaf identical to the one before it. Even the soil smells sterile. At the heart of the vineyard stands a tower, thin, tall, wrapped in silver cords that hums softly like a harp being tuned by regret. This is where the donkey slows. It circles the tower, braying low, like it's remembering something buried deep. You approach. On the tower's base, an inscription reads, "Harmony above truth. Stillness above story." Dionysus spits. "Philo's work. I should have burned it." You finally ask, "Who's Philos?" He looks at you. "A god. Once. Or maybe a librarian who read too far." Either way, he tried to erase contradiction from the world. Start with myths, then work backward. And this place? A winery that sterilizes narrative. Any story fermented here loses its teeth, its surprises, its edges. He leads you inside the tower. The air is cold, not from temperature, but absence. Of chaos. Of laughter. Of anything unpredictable. There's a quiet room at the top, round and windowless. Dozens of clay jars sit on shelves, each labeled with phrases like first dance, unspoken farewell, the joke that changed a king. You reach for one. Dionysus grabs your wrist. No. Once you open it, you forget what made it matter. He gestures at a sealed amphora in the corner, dust-covered, chained. It reads, "The first bray." Your heart drops. That's not possible. "Oh, it's real," Dionysus says, voice low. "He came here once. Philos tricked him into braying into the jar. Sealed it. Tried to erase his origin." "Why would he do that?" "Because stories like his disrupt perfection. And Philos wanted order." You approach the jar. The donkey watches. You touch the seal. The jar vibrates. Then cracks. A sound bursts out, not loud, but deep. The kind of sound that rearranges your bones. Not just a bray, but the bray. The one that startled the first vine into fruit. The one that made gods laugh and cry and punch each other at the same time. The room warps. The tower shudders. And then, silence. The donkey steps forward, touches the broken jar with its nose. A pulse of light shoots outward. The silver cords snap. Outside, the vineyard unravels, rows twisting, vines curling wildly, grapes bursting into song. Literally. Dionysus grins. "That's more like it." You step outside. The tower collapses behind you into ash. The donkey brays once, and the valley blooms again. With story. The moment the tower falls, the world exhales. Not metaphorically, actually. A great whoosh of air sweeps across the valley, bending trees backward, making birds spiral in confused joy. The grapes begin changing color mid-vine, flashing like disco balls possessed by a love of fermentation. Dionysus laughs so hard he drops his goblet. "Now that's vintage chaos," he says, wiping his eyes. The donkey brays, one clean, confident note, and the vines seem to applaud. Somewhere, a barrel bursts spontaneously into a jazz solo. But celebration doesn't last long. As night falls, a figure arrives at the edge of the valley. Tall, barefoot, hair woven with empty scrolls. You squint, it's a satyr, but different. No flute, no flask. Just an unsettling smirk and a cloak made entirely of wine labels stitched together. Dionysus groans. "Oh no! Not Parnon." "Who's Parnon?" you ask, already bracing yourself. A satyr bard who thinks he's the next Orpheus but with better branding. Parnon strides into the clearing like he owns it. "Dionysus," he shouts, arms wide. "Still stealing the spotlight with talking livestock, I see." Dionysus crosses his arms. "We're a package deal." Parnon bows to the donkey, which responds by braying an iambic pentameter. Parnon stiffens. "Still with the tricks, I see." Then he pulls out a scroll. "I challenge you." "A duel." Dionysus blinks. "A duel?" "Of comedy," Parnon declares, unrolling the scroll dramatically. "Judged by the nymphs of Chaos Creek." You glance around. From the trees emerge 6 glowing figures, each radiating mischief and moss. They take seats on floating vine chairs and clap politely. "It's tradition," Dionysus says with a sigh. Satyrs challenge each other to public comedy duels when their egos get rained on. "You go first," Parnon says, sneering. "Show me your worst." Dionysus steps forward, takes a breath, and burps the first joke. "It's awful. Something about Hera, 3 pineapples, and a goat that regrets nothing." The nymphs snort. One claps. The donkey offers a bray of support. Parnon retaliates with a poem-joke hybrid that rhymes ode with toad and ends with a pun about fermented frogs. Two nymphs groan. One disappears entirely out of second-hand embarrassment. Back and forth they go, punchlines like thunderclaps, wordplay so complex it folds back into nonsense. You can't follow half of it, but the energy is electric. Then Parnon makes a fatal mistake. He mocks the donkey. "Oh noble braying beast," he says, voice thick with sarcasm, "you're just a mule with marketing." The silence is instant. The donkey lifts its head, steps forward, and brays. Not just a sound, an event. A punchline that rewrites reality. Suddenly, Parnon's scroll turns into a fish. His cloak unravels into confetti. The trees behind him start booing. The nymphs erupt in wild, vine-wrapping applause. One turns into a cloud and starts raining roses. Parnon squeaks, grabs what dignity he has left, and runs. Dionysus bows. You never insult the punchline. Later that night, the nymphs throw a party in your honor. You dance with a breeze. You drink wine that hums lullabies. The donkey gets serenaded by a choir of ferns. As the stars tilt just slightly off-center, you realize something. You're not just following the story anymore. You're in it. And it's not slowing down. By sunrise, the valley has transformed into a patchwork of dreams, floating grape clusters, babbling brooks that recite limericks, and a tree that only sheds wine corks. You wake with a crown of vines someone placed on your head while you slept. Dionysus is cooking something that may or may not have once been sentient, and the donkey is deep in conversation with a boulder. You're not sure which is more unsettling. The boulder nods in reply. Then the donkey floats. Not jumps. Not hovers. Floats. Gently, like a balloon blessed by divine whimsy. One hoof lifts, then another, and soon it's levitating a good 2 feet off the ground, drifting sideways like it's testing gravity's patience. Dionysus doesn't even look up. Yeah. That started last night. Why? He shrugs. Ascension symptoms. That's when it hits you. The donkey isn't just behaving oddly, it's evolving. Slowly. Silently. Casually becoming something more. Fringe theologians, the type who get kicked out of symposiums for suggesting stars have favorite comedians, once whispered of a beast that ascends not through power but by persistently existing in truth. No altars. No followers. Just presence. Unbothered. Consistent. Absolute. You're watching that theory float past you, chewing a vine. Also, Dionysus adds, he speaks fluent Latin now. What? The donkey turns to you and says, Salve, viator. Cert vinum optimi nerat. Hello, traveler. Surely, wine tells the best stories. You sit down. Hard. Dionysus pats your shoulder. Don't worry. He only quotes philosophers when he's bored. Is this normal? There's no normal. That's the whole point. Later, the donkey leads you both through a glade full of mirrors. Not metaphorical ones. Literal, full-length, gold-framed mirrors growing from the ground like daisies. Each reflects not what is, but what could have been. Dionysus avoids them. You glance once, just once, and see yourself alone, holding a leash where the donkey used to be. It hurts. You move on. The donkey stops in front of the last mirror and brays. The glass doesn't reflect him. It shows a field, one vast, empty, pulsing with starlight. Dionysus steps forward and swears. He's dreaming forward. What does that mean? It means he's starting to pull possibilities toward him. Actualize futures. You both watch as the field in the mirror grows. From it, creatures rise, goats with wings, owls that laugh, people made of fermented starlight. All walking toward the center, where a donkey waits beneath a single olive tree, braying not words but meaning. The mirror fades. Dionysus leans against a tree. He's almost gone. Gone where? To become what he was always meant to be. You look at the donkey, floating just slightly above the path, hooves brushing the air. He turns, regards you with eyes that are suddenly deeper than sky. He speaks again, softly, tempus vinum est time is wine. Then he farts. Loudly. You both burst into laughter, tears stinging your eyes. He may be ascending, but he's still the same braying idiot who bit Apollo's lyre. That night, you sit around a campfire that roasts itself. Dionysus plays a tune on a flute made of cinnamon bark. The donkey levitates lazily above the flames, rotating like a divine kebab. And as you drift into sleep, you wonder, when he leaves, who tells the story? The next morning begins with an uprising. Not of people, not of beasts, but of the vines. You're brushing dew off your sleeves when the first tendril wraps around your ankle, not tightly, just enough to make a point. Another curls up Dionysus's staff, tapping insistently. All around you, grapevines slither and stretch like waking cats, twisting toward the donkey, who hovers lazily above them. Dionysus frowns. Here we go. The donkey floats down and lands softly. The vines retreat slightly, still alert, still watching. You take a step, and the ground twitches. The vineyard is alive. Not just breathing, but thinking. Dionysus steps into the center of the clearing, raises his hands. I know you're upset, he says, speaking not to the air, but to the soil. You've heard the rumors. The vines tighten. I didn't abandon you, he says. I diversified. A particularly thick vine slaps the earth in what can only be described as sarcastic rhythm. Apparently, the vineyard of Ekerut, one of Dionysus's oldest sanctuaries, has decided it's done playing second fiddle to ascending donkeys and floating monologues. They want an audience, the donkey mutters, now hovering again, head tilted. You blink. They talk to you? Always have, it replies in Latin. The earth trembles slightly. Rows of vines rearrange themselves into an amphitheater, and in the center sprouts a stage made of tightly braided roots. The message is clear. They want a council, Dionysus says. A grapevine summit. You try not to laugh. The donkey doesn't bother holding back. Still, the gravity of the moment settles in. Dionysus steps onto the root stage. The vines quiet. The donkey follows, tail flicking like a metronome. You, awkwardly, sit among the leafy rows like a reluctant theater critic. The summit begins. One by one, vines slither forward, forming shapes, rudimentary mouths, eyes, even a pair of judgmental eyebrows. They speak in rustling leaf language, which Dionysus translates. Their grievances are surprisingly articulate. You left us with poets, one vine accuses. Too many metaphors, another hisses. No more wine contests with Poseidon, a third demands. We're still drying out from the last one. The donkey interrupts with a single, commanding bray. Silence. Then, gently, it steps forward and stomps once on the stage. The vines recoil. Then curl forward. Touch its hoof. And fall still. They remember, Dionysus murmurs. He helped plant them. Long ago. Before Olympus. Before me. You ask. Why don't you write that down? Make it part of the myth? Dionysus smiles. Because the best truths aren't told, they're felt. The donkey floats again, slowly rising above the vines, which now bow, not as followers, but as kin. The stage retracts. The roots settle. The uprising ends. Peace returns. You leave the valley under a sky that has never looked more purple. Dionysus hums something wordless. The donkey, now glowing faintly, walks just ahead. As you travel, you glance back once. The vineyard waves. Not a breeze. Not a trick. But a gesture. They're no longer forgotten. And neither is he. Night arrives draped in velvet blue, and the stars above pulse like they've remembered their lines in a forgotten play. You travel without torches. The donkey glows faintly now, soft as moonlight on parchment. Dionysus doesn't speak much. He's been sipping from a flask carved out of meteorite, occasionally muttering things like too quiet or this is the kind of stillness you hear before myths turn. By the time you reach the ridge, there's already music, deep, thrumming, ancient, not coming from instruments, but from the ground. Beneath your feet, rhythm bubbles like carbonated earth. It rises through your bones, makes your teeth buzz, and sets the donkey braying in harmony. You peer over the hilltop and blink. A party. No, the party. The kind of party that makes history blink and step aside. An impossible crowd stretches out below. Gods, mortals, spirits, ideas. You spot Helen of Troy arguing with a centaur over wine purity. A chimera slow dances with a thundercloud. Even the constellation Orion is here, holding a plate of cheese. And when the donkey arrives, they cheer. The ground shakes. The clouds ripple. Even the moon tilts a little, as if to get a better look. Dionysus looks stunned. I didn't organize this. A dryad winks at him. No one did. This party summoned itself. A mythos reflex. The world recognizing a story becoming self-aware. The donkey walks to the center of it all. The crowd parts. A dance circle forms. The music grows louder, not composed, but assembled from wind, heartbeat, crackling vines, and celebratory howls. Then the donkey begins to dance. Not gracefully, not technically, but perfectly. It hops. It twirls. It shuffles with all the authority of an ancient beast who's seen empires rise and fall and still knows the exact moment to two-step. The gods stop to watch. Even Zeus pauses mid-lightning snack. One by one, the crowd joins in. Spirits, deities, forgotten demigods, even a table with legs gets in on the rhythm. It's absurd. It's sacred. It's transcendent. And as you're pulled into the dance, hand in hand with a minor wind deity who smells like pine and rebellion, you understand, this isn't just celebration. It's recognition. The donkey has crossed the boundary. From companion to concept. From joke to symbol. From myth to truth. Dionysus spins past you, laughing like a god who remembers what it means to forget decorum. He mouths, "This is it." At the dance's climax, the donkey rises. Literally. Hooves off the ground. Eyes closed. Bring a chord that harmonizes with the stars. For one breathless instant, time loops. History collapses into a sigh. And then, silence. The donkey lands. The party pauses. Then erupts into applause so loud it knocks a constellation out of alignment. Dionysus raises his goblet, face flushed, to the beast that carried stories without asking for a saddle. The crowd echoes. To the brayer! The bearer! The beginning! You stand there, heart full, legs trembling, because you've just witnessed it. The moment a legend crystallized. And he did it dancing. The party fades, not like a flame sputtering out, but like a tide pulling gently back from the shore, each god, beast, and whispered concept drifting away into their corners of myth, memory, and wine-drenched sky. Dionysus collapses into a hammock woven from harp strings, mumbling something about ambrosia hangovers. You're not sure who made the hammock. You're not sure it was made. The donkey? Still glowing. Still awake. Still changing. It doesn't dance anymore. Now it walks the clearing slowly, nodding to each patch of earth, each vine and root. Its hooves don't touch the ground anymore. They float just slightly above it, like it's politely refusing to weigh the world down. You sit with Dionysus as he blinks through the sunrise. He's not just ascending, he says quietly. He's shedding. Shedding what? Weight. Doubt. Expectation. He's becoming myth in its purest form. You look across the field. The donkey brays, but this one's different. No rhythm, no flair. Just a single note, soft and low, like a farewell whispered through leaves. Something shifts. You feel it behind your ribs. A kind of ache. Not sadness. Not exactly. But a letting go. The donkey approaches. It nuzzles Dionysus first, an act so gentle, the god flinches. You always knew more than me, Dionysus murmurs. I just got the name. Then the donkey turns to you. And for the first time, it speaks not in brays, not in Latin, but in something older, language without sound. You understand every word. You were here. That was enough. Then it steps back. A wind rises, no direction, no origin. The stars above dim, even in daylight. The vines bow. And the donkey lifts. Not jumps. Not climbs. Lifts. Higher. Brighter. Dissolving, not vanishing. Bits of it become breeze. Light. Memory. Laughter. One eye lingers last, blinking, amused, knowing. Then, gone. Silence. Dionysus doesn't cry. Neither do you. It's not that kind of ending. You rise together. Around you, the field grows lush, ripe, wild again. And on the dirt where the donkey once stood, a single vine unfurls. One golden grape. Dionysus plucks it gently, holds it up to the sun. A story, he says. Seated. You don't leave right away. The clearing is still warm, still holding something sacred in its soil. Dionysus kneels beside the golden grape like a man praying at his own altar. You sit nearby, unsure whether to speak or simply listen to the wind shift around you, so gentle, so reverent, like it, too, is remembering. Eventually, you both rise. Dionysus turns to you. Do you know what comes next? You shake your head. He smiles, soft and tired. No one does. That's why we tell stories. The walk back down the hillside is quiet, but not empty. Every step is wrapped in echoes, echoes of braying laughter, of vines hissing riddles, of grapes applauding, and of gods dancing until the stars forgot to blink. You glance behind you often, half expecting the donkey to be there, trotting along as if nothing happened. But there's only wind, only grass, only story. You pass through villages already murmuring. You hear his name, though never the same twice. Breroth, he who stumbles time. The hoof prophet. Each tale just a little off, just a little wild. And that's how you know they're real. You visit a vineyard where wine refuses to stay in bottles. A temple where bells ring whenever someone tells a joke. A meadow where a braying sound wakes the moon once a week. You don't correct anyone. You just smile. Because you were there. Dionysus disappears one morning, no grand exit, just a note scrawled on a fig leaf, off to forget myself again. Don't wait up. You laugh. You cry a little. You walk on. Years pass, or minutes. Time's funny that way, especially when you've walked beside something divine. Then one night, you hear it. Bray. Soft. Far. But clear. You look up, and the stars are blinking in rhythm again. So here we are. The fire's low. The night stretches soft across your skin like a silk sheet pulled snug around old memories. The tale has settled now, not ended, no. Stories like this don't really end. They drift. They echo. They hum beneath the noise of everyday life, waiting for you to remember them when you least expect it. Maybe one day, you'll be walking past a vineyard and hear a strange bray in the distance. Or you'll take a sip of wine and taste something that reminds you of dance, of laughter, of a hoof pressed gently into your heart. Maybe you'll look into the eyes of an animal, plain, dusty, overlooked, and wonder if you're being watched by a story in disguise. The donkey is gone, but only in the way that stories go when they've done their work. He's in the rhythm of your step, the twinkle of your eye when you remember the ridiculous, the sacred, the absurdly true. And in that place where truth and laughter meet, he lives there, always will. So rest now. Let the bray fade into your dreams. Let the vines curl around your thoughts, not to bind, but to cradle. The gods are quiet. The myths are humming. And you? You made it to the end. Sweet dreams.